should heal sides.
So I think I'll start because I was the instigator. And one other thing you didn't mention, my claim to fame, is David being David's younger brother. But this book really sort of became a passion project for me. And it started out, right, you have to understand that sort of geography is destiny, we know in a lot of ways. You end up in a certain place and then life sort of takes you. And sort of real by happenstance, really not by design, I ended up starting practice at Maimonides in Brooklyn. And being in the epicenter of the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, in a multi-generational family system, was really a sort of an amazing journey. And what it allowed me to do, right? So one of the things you have to remember is that when young physicians come out and practice, right, what is the thing? You know, all through your training, you want to get better at your procedures. You want to get better at doing X. You want to get better at doing Y. And, you know, through surgical training programs, right, the mantra always is, you know, a chance to cut is a chance to cure, right? But the healing process is more than just surgery. Being a physician is much more than just prescribing the medication. And it's that transition from the training program to real world experience that started my journey 30 years ago. And so in that journey of seeing how visual impairment of whether it be a child or an adult impacted their lives was really sort of ground shaking. Because again, the whole training process is not focused on that holistic approach. And that's changing in the general world of medicine today and medical training, of cultural sensitivity. Being Jewish and religious is uniquely different than any other daily life on this planet. We are Am HaSefer. Our communal experience, which is textually based and visually based, is incredible. If you cannot participate fully, you have significant impacts to the way you feel and the way you interact with others. If you can't see well, right, you can't take your medication properly, you don't know which pills you're taking. If you're a child in our community who has visual impairment, how are you going to learn to read Hebrew with Nikudot? How are you going to visually process learning left to right, right to left? If you're affected by neurologic disease and you can't see on one side, again, Hebrew, English, this is something that is unique to us, whether it be Shabbos candles, Hanukkah candles, and just coming to shul, the entire shul experience, which is the epicenter of Jewish life, is certainly a visual one, not so much an auditory one. The auditory experience pales without the visual component. So, you know, in today's day and age, you have, I don't know, something hurts me. What do you go? You go to Dr. Google. All right, what am I saying? Just look it up. Guess what? For the associations and support for visual impairment, Dr. Google has nothing. Now, yes, there's the Jewish Heritage for the Blind that publishes some large print Judaica, but that's where the support ends. Even the non-governmental organizations, Jewish Guild for the Blind, which isn't so Jewish, which merged with the Lighthouse, and Helen Keller, their focus is really on occupational training, potentially, and adaptive devices. Well, adaptive devices only work during the week. They don't work well on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and they really are task specific. So here I am faced with, on a daily basis, visual challenges for us, right? For a unique perspective, with no resources for the patient, no resources for families. Now, let's talk about the rabbis, the she'ilot that are coming up, right? We know things in halacha and medicine. It really comes down to how is the question asked? What are the facts, not the suppositions? Well, there's no single reference point for any person who wants to be a posek. And they can pull things out here and there without the medical facts to help support it. We get, those of us who work with the Jewish community, sometimes get strange questions, Rabbi. We get questions about shidduchim. You get questions about mikvah. how do you then interplay the medical facts with these issues? When I talk about shidduch, we're talking about patients who have hereditary issues. Or is it not a hereditary issues? Some, again, within our communities, certain segments of our communities have a tendency to marry within close relatives. That creates whole other issues. J-screen does not look at the ophthalmic panel of hereditary ocular diseases, from congenital cataracts, strabismus. So these are the real world experiences, having sort of walked in those shoes, that sort of said, hey, why is there no reference book? Why is there no source, single source that you can go to for obtaining this knowledge? And then I realized the reason there was no single source is because there was nobody else, even from Israel, who had the ability to synthesize this broad experience and put it together in one place. So that's what I decided to do. That was the motivation. All right, like everybody knows, book writing is a hobby, right? I have a daytime job. So this process took many years, but it took years till we got to the point that I said, now is the time, more than ever. And so 5 years ago, I said, this is really the time, and I started to enlist people who I really respect and I thought had a Yiddish heart, right? That Jewish heart, to understand the passion of the project. Now, I didn't want this book to just be my voice, right? Because you would say, Norm is crazy. This is his view of the universe. So what I did was I enlisted in like a medical text format, which is a multi-author approach. I obtained colleagues who are specialists and subspecialists in different ocular specialties, right? So those of us who are civilians, right, don't realize that there are like 8 different types of ophthalmologists. Glaucoma, cataract, right, blue eye, brown eye. No, I'm joking about the blue eye and brown eye. But the answer is we're a bunch of microsurgeons who dissect each and every aspect. And every person brings something unique to the table. So the people I enlisted are all Jewish, but most of them are not observant. But they've been dealing with people from our community. They walk in our shoes. They understand the challenges that are unique to us. And they brought, with obviously with guidance and input back and forth from me, their perspective and expertise to this book. So the first third of the book is actually pseudo-medical. I say pseudo-medical because it's designed to educate us about each of these disease categories, about the facts of the medical aspects, but also the impact on how that impacts religious Jewish life. So you understand, if I have problem X, this is going to impact my ability to do Y. With that in hand, right, a rabbi who's an expert in halacha needs to have the medical facts in order to paskin shilos. Therefore, this became the backbone, the first part of the book. The second part and third parts were now the hashkafa, the impact on our emunah, right? What happens to people when they are afflicted with an illness, right? What happens to your faith? The why me questions, all right? Well, it impacts, any disease process. This is perhaps more acute, and I'll sort of go off on a tangent for a second, Rabbi. Why Eine Yitzchak? And I personally, I was sort of really fascinated by this whole parsha and the Yitzchak, we'll call it phenomena, right? So the first person that is referred to as being visually impaired in the Torah is Lemach. But the truth is, the text doesn't reflect that. That's Rashi giving us sort of a interpretation, which is also strange. Why not call it as it is? Maybe, perhaps, it's to set us up for, the Yitzchak sort of experience. What I found fascinating about the Yitzchak experience is that the Parsha opens with Yitzchak davening because his wife's medical condition, his wife is barren. She's infertility. So he is davening for her. Later on, the Psukim talk about now that Yitzchak has gotten old and he can't see. Why isn't somebody davening for him? Why isn't somebody davening and reaching out for him to assist him? We've accepted davening from Tanakh for healing. Kel da Rafan Allah. The Nachash and the Choshed, the Rashi talks about the Choshed, right? You're not staring at the snake. Klape Mala. Yet Yitzchak, Rivka's not davening for Yitzchak, and Yitzchak is not his own advocate for his visual loss. So from an ophthalmologic perspective, when we see this and we ponder, why is the story like this, right? Biblical stories are designed to sort of give us some deeper meaning, right? I learned from Yaakov, he has 12 sons, don't raise your children all the same because they don't come out the same. But Yitzchak's sort of experience or acceptance of his infirmity is not okay. We in medicine and in science want to push envelopes that, right, to go where no man has gone before, to quote Gene Roddenberry, right? But it's always to be pushing forward. And I think the message here is perhaps for Yitzchak, right? Because you didn't push things forward, because look, there was this whole issue with your children. The issue of Yitzchak here and telling us to sensitize us, to alert us that visual impairment has profound effects on our lives, and that we need to be advocates for those who are visually impaired. We need to be better ourselves. And I think that's sort of the ophthalmologic Musar Haskell from the story of Yitzchak. So this journey, going back and closing up the circle here, is this journey for me began because of the internalization of my day-to-day experience and to solve a problem, right? The publisher asks you, what is the point of this book, right? You know, what is the goal, right? Is it to sell 1 million copies? Is it to make a screenplay? And the answer is no, right? So just to let you know, besides using this as a fundraiser for Migdal Or, I've donated now several hundred copies to Hatzalah members, right? So to help them triage in the field on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and hopefully my phone will ring less. So yes, I have an ulterior motive, but that's the goal here. The goal is to get this out there and to put it out. And I couldn't have done it without my partners in this journey. And I have tremendous hakara satov for both you, Rabbi Trump, for this and contributing, and for Rabbi Fogel, who has been present with me on this journey. We took special care, really special care, not to offer any psak halacha in this book, right? It's not our place to give a psak halacha. I don't have a Kevlar vest, and Rabbi Fogel doesn't either. But he did a truly monumental job of putting together the sources to allow whoever wants to give a psak halacha, for him or her to give a psak halacha. How was that for being PC? But in any event, that's really the goal of this book, so that it'll serve as a reference book. My hope is this will be the first of many books out there addressing different healthcare issues within our community, and motivate my colleagues to, you know, stop sleeping at night and write their chapters.
Well, actually, I just want to say that there are many people in many fields and many doctors who deal with what's in front of them. It's not so common to find a doctor who's taken the time to go beyond to deal with the human element in such a profound way as well. Rabbi Fogel, just tell us your avenue. What was your on-ramp to this whole process?
I mean, part of the on-ramp was exactly like this. I was sitting in a chair in Dr. Saffra's office. I had...
Violation of HIPAA.
Yeah, I can say it. You can say it, I can say it. I had 2 retinal detachments, and I needed in Israel, when I moved back to America, I needed a doctor. And I luckily ended up at Dr. Saffra's office. And then, you know, we're schmoozing. And then Dr. Saffra, and everything you just heard, this great idea is what Dr. Saffra pitched me on. And that's what we did. So it was really, as a patient and someone who experienced a lot of this. It's in the book, but I'll tell you, my first retinal detachment was Erev Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael. Not a good time to go to the hospital in Eretz Yisrael. In America, if you go on December 24th, 25th, there's Jewish doctors. But in Erev Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael, you're not going to want anyone to look at you. I can tell you that much. And then how to go through Yom Kippur, not be able to read. And so that woke me up to, a lot of the issues that we spoke about. And then Dr. Saffra's encouragement and continued encouragement and further encouragement. This book took a number of turns and years and the like, but through Dr. Saffra's encouragement, we put it together, or he put it together. I just wrote a little bit.
I would beg to differ. If you read the incredibly well-sourced and footnoted chapters that Rabbi Fogel has written, you'll see that this is really a expertise that Rabbi Fogel has built up in the research necessary for this, which I don't think exists elsewhere, except in the realm of specific shilas here and there, but not in one place. So just to see both the medical background and the halachic background is really truly phenomenal.
I mean, and that's really what Dr. Saffra wanted, that this book would be a compendium which had, the medicine and halacha together, and specific to a field. And Dr. Saffra pointed out to all the other physicians in other fields that it's for the layperson, for the ophthalmologist who might not know that much about halacha or Jewish theology, and for everyone together, this book has everything on this subject, this topic. And that was really the goal. That was the main focus of Dr. Saffra, and hopefully we brought it out.
It really is incredible. I want to just ask a question. I know this book has taken a few turns along publishers and the route of getting to from idea to print. What was a lesson or a realization, epiphany you came across in the process that was unexpected from start to finish that you learned through the process of publication?
So I've written lots of scientific papers, right? So I thought I was used to the publication and editing sort of process. Writing a book is a different process completely. Besides, the level of editing, copy editing, style editing, book design, page layout, the process really was quite long. And I also think, I say this, amongst our friends and us, dealing with Jewish publishers is also a unique experience, right? It really is. Because it's always Erev Yontif, Erev Shabbat, somebody's on vacation, somebody's making a chasana. So it also added to the entire Jewish experience of getting this published. And of course, we had it printed in Israel. And how do they ship it to America? On the slowest boat via China to the guy. So people say, why did it take so long? I mean, part of it was me, part of it was COVID, and then part of it was Feldheim. But I'm really indebted to give them Hakar Satov for their enthusiasm for sort of taking on this project and for really sort of helping move it to sort of its current format. They didn't want it too long. They wanted it, there was certainly a lot of help along the way. So and I have to give Hakar Satov to Hindi, our copy editor, and we went through lots and lots and lots of lots of computer time, lots of phone time. So it's a very involved process. And for my next volume, it'll be much faster, I promise. I don't know if there'll be a next volume.
For me, it was, when you write scholarly, when you write Dvar Torah, when you write something, so you obviously have the reader in mind, but a lot of times you just have your idea, you have your thoughts, and you want to put it down, and you source it, and you want to get out the idea. When you write a book, especially when you deal with an editor and a publisher, who are coming from the reader, from the consumer, from the person reading, it's a whole different mindset of how to write. You write with the reader in mind, even though you want to put all your sources in, you want to put all your chidushim in, you want to say shtickle Torah, but you also have to be readable. It has to be accessible. So that to me was an unbelievable lesson through this process of making sure that everything you want to say comes out in the paper, understandable, readable, and clear.
Right, we had that. We must have had. I did this with every single one of the contributors. We had hundreds of hours really dissecting each and every, right? I mean, down to where's the comma, where's the period,
Right.
what did you mean by this?
And also, because a lot of the contributors, the doctors, are deal with the Jewish community, as Dr. Saffra said, they had their experience and they might have wanted to offer their opinion, halakhic opinion, or something of the sort. And the book had to have one voice, and that was to just put different people. Then you'd have steers, you'd say, between chapter 4, 7, and 10, because the expert in one, say in corneas would say his opinion, and so to get the book to have one voice, which was Dr. Saffra's goal, and I think it really worked out very well, was a real labor.
I know I had at least 25 different renditions from the editor on my specific chapter. Just every detail really was really an incredible opportunity and that level of professionalism. I want to ask you is, I know you started with a particular idea in mind. What's something that you do now differently through the sensitization of the process? Meaning to say, what is something you started with an idea, but now, as you said, Dr. Saffra, you're responding to a need in the community. What is something in your life you do differently because of this book, because of publishing this book?
So I have to tell you, so first of all, those of you who are friends and have been patients know that I always have residents in the office with me, seeing patients. So now I started actually something a couple of years ago, that any medical student that comes with me and any resident comes with me, we do an exercise. First, we patch both their eyes so that all they see is light, and then I have another student lead them in the street for about 20 minutes, and then they switch it. Then what we do is I put on the raw power prescription specifically on them to blur their vision, and same exercise. One of the hardest things to do as a physician, right, is to put yourself in the place of your patient, right? Through training, we're young and healthy for the most part. How do you place yourself, walk in the shoes of the person you're trying to take care of? This, we'll call it holistic approach, is something now that is in our program mandatory. That experience to try to sensitize is huge. I'm a little crazy about making sure things are handicapped accessible every place that's part of my life, lever handles, good lighting, etc. I have 2 occupational therapists that I sort of sensitize to what the needs are, who can go out and even make home visits. So I think, when you ask me, how has this journey changed me? Listen, in the office, I still have to sort of take care of the issue in front of me, but I certainly try to make sure now that the other issues are being addressed either directly or indirectly, because otherwise I'm really not doing my job.
For me, just more specific to the chapters in the book, there's a lot of Jewish medical halachic writing out there. The point here was to try to be very focused on specific topics and to be very clear and to be around one idea. And I think, and to be, I guess, user-friendly. So not everyone has access to all the articles, not everyone has access to all the svarim, or is able to read it. And I thought the point, for me at least, was to try to ask the questions and give the answers that the people have on a certain halacha and make it accessible. And a lot of times, and as you said, I do work in 2 medical schools and the dental school. Everyone has a general idea. There are certain topics, certain ideas, and certain klolim that everyone's heard, or they learned in yeshiva, or they heard of. But to synthesize it and to actually say, okay, this is the question for this. Not that in any way, shape, or form I'm a posek in any way, but what a posek does is he's able to synthesize all the information and say, okay, this is the question here, this is the issue here, and then, okay, where's the source for that? So that was we tried in the book to try to get that so everyone knows a lot of information, but to understand which information is relevant and where to go from there in this one topic. I think that was, for me, an unbelievable lesson that I'm able to do.
I think one of the topics that I sort of forced upon us, which was a little controversial, that I wanted to address, was that of transplant, corneal transplant. And so, L'tzarenu, we know about the chayalim that are dying now in Israel. We know about that many of them are donating organs. And again, without treading into that halachic morass of organ donation, one thing that is unique and different is cornea donation, la'afuke, to exclude everything else, because corneas can be donated post-mortem, which is why this topic, which is potentially a third rail, is not a third rail as much in ophthalmology, because cornea donations for visual restoration are post-mortem, as opposed to concepts of brain death, etc. And it makes a huge difference because it's nogea hayom. It's really a very big issue today. I don't know, those of you who are addicted to Times of Israel website like I am, and the number of unfortunate lives that have been saved by the chayalim who've sacrificed is now a really big number. So these are topics that are not just in theory, but these are topics that are nogea hayom. And we sit and we ponder, is this a theoretical book? I think not. I think the book is really a practical sort of compendium, and I hope it sort of gets out there to fulfill its mission. That's really what I hope.
I know that certainly as a rabbi, there's been many times where people wake up and they need to go through some sort of a procedure that relates to the eye, and they ask last minute, is this all right? I remember just recently we actually spoke about one of these procedures, and I think there's a lack of awareness generally in the rabbinates and in the Jewish community. I'd like to pivot now just to, we'll call the community in general. I believe that everybody in this room has a responsibility to be an advocate for the importance of this book and this topic as well, because I do believe that the Jewish community is sadly unaware of most of the sensitivities that relate to this, and I had an eye-opening experience. I'm sorry, that was not meant as such.
That's a lot of those.
So much of Judaism relates to vision, and even our idioms in English relate to that. So my question is, I can tell you things specific to me, but if you were to have a pitch and you were to have a few moments with community leaders in other communities that we're not aware of, what are things that can be tangibly either A, more aware of, and B, they can do, which would be more inclusive and more aware of for the seeing and the visually impaired community?
That's a great question, Rabbi Trump. And I think we are really we're chesed machines on Israel. It's been brought about now. You see everybody coming together for Eretz Yisrael, but even before the Eretz Yisrael, we have gemachs, we have chesed organizations ad ein sof. One of the things that is missing, right? You have gemachs for everything, and you have Bios Chassadim organizations, but there's really nothing really out there for visually impaired people. And even when you call any of the big home organizations that are really awesome in what they do, this is a niche. It's a real niche that is not completely covered. And I think that that's something as a group that we need to sort of be better with. It's hard. The needs of the community are monumental and never ending. How do we? The answer is lot, step by step. I mean, that's what we do. We stand up to be called. We answer the call, and I think that's something that, from my standpoint, is something that we can probably do better.
I really have very little to add to that's really the right answer. Just from, I guess, rabbinic halachic perspective, Baruch Hashem, there are a lot of people living longer, and then with that, sometimes they lose their vision or visually impaired. So to me, the understanding that that's going to be more and more part of our shul and more of a part of our community, people who are going to shiurim, or people are coming to shul, getting aliyahs, and all that goes with it. We have to realize that it's for good. It's going to be really a part of our community lives. And the thing that we, rabbanim and people involved in the community should that's the pitch. That this is something that's gonna I grew up in a shul in Kew Arden Hills, and there was a man, a survivor of Lodge, who Baruch Hashem lived a very long life. And then, he wanted to hear Kriyas Torah his whole life. He stood and did Kriyas Torah, and he would stand, by the bima. But what was there for him to do? And here he had a person whose whole life was revolved around shul, a Holocaust survivor, and how could we help him, keep his Yiddishkeit, keep his Kriyas Torah, meaningful and impactful. And I think that's
right. I think one of the other things that it's sort of like a little funny, but not so much, is that every shtiebel in Brooklyn, right? So you take a shtiebel with no LED lighting, poor lighting. You take, an old Saffra Torah with low contrast. You put it on a stender that's angled. These are not visually friendly sort of experiences. And so, making our shuls accessible for everybody becomes an important consideration as well. It's less of a comment in newer buildings, but traditionally that's an issue. And I think one of the other sort of things is that we focus sometimes just on the male participants in our rituals. We are certainly lacking in our sensitivity to the female members of our family confronted by this in ritual.
In our neighborhoods around here, we all have Erevs. But, every once in a while, it might not be an Erev, but in Brooklyn, in a place without an Erev, it's one of the important gemachs is reading glasses in the women's section. People who don't want to wear glasses, and the men's section as well. But I went, the first time I saw that in the shul in Brooklyn, there was a gemach of all the different levels of prescription of reading glasses, so people could daven in shul, because you can't carry it, you don't want to wear it, and so it's one of those things that like someone was sensitive enough in the shul in Brooklyn where people weren't carrying to reading glasses. Again, everyone should ask the rabbi if you can carry your reading glasses. Not gonna Pascha up here, but it's one of those things that you don't realize that everyone at a certain age has a hard time reading. Needs the glasses. If you can't carry and you're not going to wear the glasses, what are you going to do in shul?
I think there's another thing that I could use help. I'd like to enlist everybody here. SOMET is that institute in Israel which really is great about designing things that can be used, electronic devices that can be used halakhically, whether it be security devices or medical devices. In my appeal to them for magnifying devices that could be used on Shabbat and Yom Tov, I couldn't get their buy-in because they didn't think there was a big enough need, right? Because it's about resource allocation, and they just didn't see the need. So I'll just remind people that nobody thought about the need of a motorized wheelchair until there was people banging at the door. So the reason I single out SOMET is because they're really the leaders in these sort of halachic solutions to electronic devices. And with LEDs, it's certainly much easier, but the ability for people to use a handheld LED magnifier or something on Shabbat and on Yom Tov with its SOMET label on it would be amazing. But as a lone voice, and even the few patients that I've sort of encouraged to call them, it's hard. And I think one of the other things that we don't realize is that there's really people who are visually impaired in our midst don't want to stand out. They don't want to be utilizing assistive devices all the time because it draws attention. And the question is, how do we do it with tznius and respect? And that's another sort of, factor. But again, after the war is finished, I think if I can appeal to people to just email SOMET and just say, hey, can you guys help us with some religiously approved battery-operated magnifiers for use on Shabbat and Yom Tov? Because you think about a long Shabbos, the long Friday night, all right? We could all ponder, we're still Am HaSefer, we're the last group of people that reads newspapers. That's the 5 Jewish Times and the Jewish Press. Everybody else is digital. But just imagine what it's like. It is a very, very long, long day, on top of other long days. Forget about a 3-day Yom Tov.
I would just add, I was going to actually 4 lessons just I learned along our way as well. Is first, in the wake of having written this chapter, because of the opportunity you gave me, we established actually a accessibility committee in our shul, and the accessibility was beyond just vision. It was about how accessible are we to people who can't necessarily access them through the regular portals. It was an ill-fated committee because we started at the beginning of 2020, and unfortunately other things hit us there, but I'm putting this out there as a public reminder to myself that, and for those who are here who would like to be involved in that, to ensure that we start that accessibility committee again. I want to say there's a person in this room who made me incredibly resensitized, not just to the textual awareness, but also to the social awareness, is that when a person's lost eyesight and they come to shul and they're in a shul kiddush, as an example, they can't necessarily recognize people in their peripheral vision. They don't have the same way, and therefore they're put in a circumstance where somebody may walk past them and be upset that they didn't greet them, but they couldn't see them. And they can't see them unless they actually look at them in the face, and that's very uncomfortable. And I didn't realize the social ramifications and how a person who's struggling on a visual level may not want to come to shul, to not put themselves into such situation because we lack the sensitivity. We lack the sensitivity to those who are struggling. And that opened up a new vista. And I think it's important for all of us to talk to and to be aware of the fact, because we sometimes are not aware of what other people are going through, how significant that is. There are people in this room who have a child who's gone through now years of the struggle, and most of the community is just not aware, doesn't have the tools to understand what it means, what that struggle truly means, and the obstacles, the basic obstacles that to us are for granted, what that means. There's a person who does in this particular room, generally on Shabbos, an elderly man who's losing his vision, and he's a ish hasefer. He's a person who loves to learn, and it's painful for him to come to shul now because he can't read. He can't read in the same way as he used to, and that is part of his simchas hachayim. As part of his simchas hachayim, and our ability to be able to include everybody on this level is so incredibly important. Another example, just these are all examples in our shul, just in this environment, is that there's a person whose father just passed away a couple of years ago, and his father ended his life like Yitzchak, but Yitzchak, and his eyes, he was not able to read at the end of his life. But his thing in life was davening. He loved davening, but he couldn't daven because he couldn't read. And this person said to me, "Is there an audio siddur? Is there an audio siddur out there?" Because he would have loved just to be able to say the words along with the audio siddur, because he can't see anything. Even the large print doesn't work anymore at this point in time. And you know what? There isn't. On the Lookstein Center, there is an audio siddur, but that's for the end of the paragraphs to help those people who are becoming initiated in saying the end of the davening to lead it. But from start to finish, this is a project I did try to start. I didn't have the capacity to bring it to its full fruition. If anybody wants to join me on this, an audio siddur, these are small things, and these are just 4 instances that affect us just in this small community. That's not talking about the larger community. And the larger community, I would say in general, and I'm going to use this specifically, is blind to these issues. Your average shul, like you mentioned in these shtibbels in Brooklyn, but beyond, your average shul is simply not aware of accessibility, and certainly not when it comes to the visual community. I think we have a long road ahead of us to be able to perhaps repave this road.
Right, it's not an indictment of us. I think it's just, as in all of general populations, an increased sensitivity to inclusion. You know, we joke about how far things have gone in diversity, inclusion, etc. But this is an inclusiveness that is something that we can all do better. I mean, in a time now where it's really am echad together, that inclusion of all is really, really very important. You know, we're good about it with Yachad, we're good about it with a lot of other groups, and this is just sort of should increase our sensitivity, and we should be just, pushing our own levels of chesed in general. This is really a good time to sort of be doing it for members of the community. And again, I don't want you to think that we're not taking care of people outside of our community, but ani ircha kodem. I mean, if I can be so bold at this time. And I couldn't have done this project without my colleagues and Rabbi Fogel lending the halachic sort of oomph that it did, because otherwise it would have just been me sort of pontificating about a bunch of things. So I really want to just give a public hakaras hatov to Rabbi Fogel and for his real assistance and partnership in the project.
I want to thank Dr. Saffra, Fogel, for really an incredible project. A project which hopefully will have bear fruit for many, many years to come. Thank you for being here. Thank you for writing this, and thank you for illuminating the eyes of Israel. The books are available over here and on the side. Please make out checks for the buying them to Migdal or Friends of Migdal or USA. And the memo is Magen Israel Be'ezra Hashem. This should just overflow into further chesed. Thank you.
And anybody who, I have more books in the car, obviously in my house. Anybody who wants them, just ring the doorbell and that's it. Thank you.